Text, Indeed, Jobcast. Unemployment explained, financial support benefits and how to access them.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's Indeed Jobcast. I'm Abby Carlton, Indeed's Director of Social Impact, and in that role, I lead Indeed's global efforts to address bias and barriers in hiring through product innovation, strategic partnerships, and work in our communities. Here is our agenda for today's webinar. Today, we are going to talk about the basics of unemployment insurance. Then we are going to dive in on some of the expanded benefits that are available under the CARES Act. I will share some information about how Indeed is bringing new features and resources to you to help with job search during COVID-19. And we will leave some time at the end for questions. A couple of things before we begin. First, you are in listen-only mode, so you can hear us, but we can't hear you. Second of all, we are recording, so no worries about taking notes. You can view this webinar after the fact at Indeed's YouTube channel.
youtube.com/Indeed.
So if you want to take notes, feel free, but you can also go back to anything here if you want to listen to it again. And then finally, ask questions. Post on the Indeed community discussion using this link, and our team of career coaches will be answering.
go.indeed.com/unemployment.
So with that, I would like to introduce today's presenter. We are really lucky today to be joined by Andrew Stetner. Andrew is a senior fellow at the Century Foundation, and he's been studying and working on workforce protections and social insurance for the last 20 years.
www.tcf.org. At Pelham, Prague.
Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today, and I will turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. Again, I'm Andrew Stetner, Senior Fellow with the Century Foundation. We are an independent think tank based in New York and Washington, D.C., and we are closely following developments in unemployment benefits and happy to share our research, which we will continue to post at our website, tcf.org, or you can follow us on Twitter. Excited for this opportunity.
Text, unemployment basics.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about unemployment insurance. I know many of you are facing unemployment today. So what if you're out of work because your employer shut down when the governor said essential businesses are closed? Maybe you're still connected to your employer, but you've been furloughed. Or perhaps you've had to quit your job because a family member has caught COVID-19 and you needed to make a decision to care for them. Or you're a gig worker or a freelancer, but you don't have any gigs. What do these workers have in common with the regular program and the expansions that Abby referred to? You could be eligible for unemployment benefits. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about regular state unemployment benefits. So these are benefits that you have paid into through your work. Your employer made the deposits, but you have earned these benefits.
Text, who may be eligible? Unemployed through no fault of your own. Work history, regular wages or salary, and available for work.
So these are benefits that are available to workers who are paid a regular salary or hourly wage through a W-2. If you've been in a situation, if you've been laid off, let's say in April of this year, if you've been working at least 8 months before that, you've probably worked enough to get unemployment benefits. In addition to that, you have to be unemployed through no fault of your own. Let me explain that for just a minute. So that means that you are laid off from your employer, meaning you don't have an employment relationship, with them anymore because they've had a downturn in their business. You also may be furloughed, and what that will come up with on the unemployment application will be lack of work. So that means you may still be connected to them, maybe even getting benefits, but this week or subsequent weeks, you have no hours of work and you're not getting paid. You may have been fired, but not for breaking the law or breaking a major rule. Or even if you've quit your job, but you've done it for a very compelling and urgent reason, you may be eligible for unemployment benefits. And lastly, even after you're laid off, you have to be available for work. That means you're in the job force and you're able to work if a job is offered to you.
Regular benefits. What is the process?
So let me talk a little bit about the regular unemployment benefits process. There is a minimum earnings requirement that we talked about. If you get through that and you found to be unemployed through no fault of your own, you can be eligible for unemployment benefits. That's the first step. Second, for every week after that initial eligibility, you have to certify that you remain eligible for unemployment benefits. And then you'll be able to get your assistance. It will come in the form of a direct deposit onto your debit card or into your bank.
Applying for unemployment insurance.
It's easy, was one place, it's easy to start looking for unemployment benefits. There's a one-stop shop on the U.S. Department of Labor website, careeronestop.org, where you can get the most current link for the website of your state unemployment benefit program, the state where you did your work. Most workers file unemployment benefits online. 3 out of 4 file online, but in certain situations, you may file by phone if you need to.
Search unemployment plus the state. go.indeed.com/state resources.
So that's the process. It has its twists and turns in any times, but it's a little harder today because of the really extreme number of unemployment claims and the stress that's putting on the states that operate these programs.
Chart title: Cumulative COVID-19 claims and insured unemployment. The horizontal axis contains the dates March 14, 2020, March 21, 2020, April 3, 2020, and April 11, 2020. The vertical axis contains the numbers 5 million to 25 million. The red line represents continued claims. The blue line represents cumulative initial claims.
Just to give you a sense, when we started this, we were about at 200,000 workers applying for unemployment benefits. And the previous record in a week was 600,000, all the way back in 1982. Now, in just the last 4 weeks alone, we've had 22 million people file for unemployment benefits. If you can believe it, that's 1 in 7 people in America who file for unemployment benefits. So if you filed, you're not alone. So the states are doing their best to make their way through the surge in unemployment claims. In fact, 70% nearly have already moved to that very first step and being able to file their weekly certification. But 31% are still waiting to be approved. And even some of that group that's been already through the second step haven't yet seen money. I know many on the call today may be experiencing a wait before they get their benefits.
Title: Tips for filing a UI claim.
So what do you do if maybe you haven't filed yet for unemployment or you're still in the process? Let me give you some tips, in this unprecedented and difficult time. Really expect to wait, be patient. People have had to call hundreds, I have to say even thousands of times to get through to file their claim. And also know that websites are built for a certain amount of traffic and they have been overwhelmed at times. So you might have to try at a different time of when you first, even if you're applying online.
Text: Be persistent.
You have to be prepared when you apply. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. You're not alone in this.
Use social media to connect to others forced to navigate the system.
There are Facebook groups in particular where people in your community may already be connecting and giving little tips. Press 9, then press 2, then press 5 in order to get through. And also, if you're blocked for filing, make your voice heard. This is a public program that you have paid into. Call your governor's office, your local elected official. They may have some tips. They may even have their own hotline to some of the Labor Department that's helping their constituents be able to get this assistance. So what do I mean when I say be prepared when you apply? You might even think you're filing on the web so you can take your time. But as I said, these websites are experiencing tremendous amount of traffic and they may easily time out if you're not ready. And it's also, if you're calling, there's a lot of volume that they're trying to work their way through.
Text, depending on your state, you will likely be required to provide some variation of the following information: previous employer's business name and address, first and last dates you worked for your previous employer, number of hours worked and pay rate if you worked this week, details related to your normal wage, and valid ID or registration number.
So have all your information. Here's the slide, tells you kind of what you need. Where did you work? What was their name and address? That should pop up when you file for benefits, and you want to have that handy so you can know which button to click. What were the dates of your employment? When did you start? When did you end? How much were you getting paid? How many hours were you working? And your personal information, get it together, your driver's license, social security card, that kind of personal information. Have that already when you do the application, so you don't have to run around looking for something and have to start all over again.
Title: New measures to help you.
So this, we did say on one hand, the claims are surging and it's very hard to get through, but there are new measures to help you that many states have put into place already. In nearly all states, because of new federal requirements, you can be considered that available to work, even if right now, today, you wouldn't be able to go out and work in your customary occupation. For example, let's say you're a barber and the governor has ordered businesses to be closed, so you couldn't really do your job. They have modified those definitions to fit this nature, that in general, I would say if you're able to work, once the job is offered to you again and situations change, you're considered to be available for work. Even now, quitting because of COVID-19 is allowed. And that means, if you are sick or a family member is sick, you're allowed to quit your job to take care of them and get unemployment benefits. And they've shortened the legal wait time for benefits in most states. Usually you had to file for 1 week of unemployment that you wouldn't even get paid for. Now they've gotten rid of that because of the urgent need that people out there are experiencing today.
Expanded benefits under the CARES Act.
But the real changes that make a big difference to the millions of Americans seeking unemployment benefits were made in a recent new law called the CARES Act. So I'll spend some time talking about that.
CARES Act, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, provides fast and direct economic assistance for American workers and families, small business, and preserves jobs for American industries.
So the idea of the CARES Act was there is this unprecedented unemployment, and that is impacting these families, but also the broader economy when people don't have money to spend. And so there's a need to get people relief quickly. And they looked out there of how to do that. And unemployment benefits, because it's already set up, was one of the fastest ways they could get people help that needed it the most. So let me just talk about some of the help that's available. Now, the current unemployment benefit averages $372 per week. And that's about 40% of the wages of the person applying. So it's enough to keep you out of poverty and the most severe hardships that you can face when you lose your job. But it really does entail you sliding back, at least temporarily, in your position. And and so that was a real challenge out there, because some people are being laid off through no fault of their own.
Pandemic unemployment compensation.
So the first move that Congress made that's very important to people is they've decided to give an extra $600 per week for everyone receiving unemployment benefits. Regardless of what program you're getting unemployment benefits, you can get it, whether it's a partial check, federal or state, you get the extra $600. You're eligible for that additional assistance in almost all cases. And most states are paying these benefits already. So you're eligible for unemployment benefits. And if you're in the system, for the most likely part, you're going to be eligible for this extra $600. The goal there was to take the average worker who's making about $1,000 per week and get them back to their previous wage, between that previous average and the extra $600.
Text: all flavors of unemployment may be eligible for PUC, including partial unemployment benefits, extended, work sharing, and trade.
So the standard unemployment benefits package going into this crisis in about 40 of the 50 states and DC was 26 weeks. That may be enough when there's a lot of jobs out there, but it may not be enough in times of recession, especially this period when it may be many weeks before businesses open up again and start rehiring or hiring. So that benefit duration may be a big challenge for people on the call.
Pandemic emergency unemployment compensation.
So recognizing that, Congress put in an additional 13 weeks of benefits, a total of 39 weeks.
Available to those who have exhausted regular benefits after July 1, 2019 and are still involuntarily out of work.
It's available to a broad number of people, potentially. People that have been laid off recently and are just getting unemployment benefits. Also, people that were laid off before this crisis happened and had run out of their state benefits or are soon to run out of those 26 weeks, and they're still out of work. They could be eligible for an additional 13 weeks of federal benefits through the CARES Act.
Text, are you a gig worker or freelancer? Laid off after you just started or were going to start a job? Congress created a new program for you.
So lastly, a big issue, before this crisis, only about 30% of people out of work were getting an unemployment payment. And when we looked at that, we realized that that is not enough of a response to a situation of this magnitude. So what if you're a gig worker or a freelancer? What if you just started the job, you just moved to a new city, and all of a sudden you lost your job? Well, Congress did create a new program for you and your situation. It's called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, PUA, or PUA, like the pig in Moana my daughter likes so much. So these are workers who are not eligible for regular unemployment benefits. Like I mentioned, you're in the freelance economy. You're working part-time and your state doesn't cover part-time workers. Say, for example, if you're working and going to school full-time. Or you haven't worked enough, you haven't worked long enough. And importantly, you can trace back your unemployment, your lack of work to COVID-19 and the impacts it's had on the economy. So what do I mean when I say your unemployment is because of COVID-19? You can look at your state unemployment website. They're starting to put this information out there, but I'll just give you some basic idea. You yourself have COVID-19 or caring for someone like we talked about before. Also, critically, if your child was going to school that was closed or a child care center, and now you have to be a full-time caregiver and you can no longer work. Your business has been closed, because of a public health order, or even if you were scheduled to start a new job, say on April 15th, but then that start date was moved or canceled because of COVID-19. How much are these benefits are you potentially eligible for? The benefits can go up to 39 weeks between January 27th is the first week of eligibility, all the way to the end of December. The benefits, if you are eligible, are at least 1/2 of the state average benefit. That's about $180 a week. And if you get the PUA, in most cases, you are going to get the additional $600 per week. That $600 is out there for this particular crisis period from April of July 31st. Now, I know many people are frustrated because they heard about the CARES Act, which passed on March 28th, but they have not yet gotten assistance. And most states haven't begun to accept applications. The states are working hard. Many of them are starting to accept applications, this week or next week. So the help will be on the way. And importantly, we'll talk about this later, once they get the applications up, you'll be able to start collecting them for when your unemployment started because of COVID-19.
Title, Gig Workers, what happens to an Uber driver or others laboring for gig economy platforms who can't get gigs now?
So let's talk a little bit more about that. A lot of talk about the gig economy, particularly those who are drivers, but on many other, platforms. Although it's been controversial, most of them have not gotten regular unemployment benefits.
May be eligible for PUA if forced to suspend or reduce activities because of COVID-19. May include travel restrictions and also big drop in business because of public health orders.
Now, these workers may now be eligible for PUA if they can say that they can't do that gig work because of COVID-19. Maybe there are travel restrictions in your area that you can no longer do the gig economy work you are doing. For example, taking care of cleaning houses. You may not be able to do that because of what people have said about going into other people's homes. Or maybe there's just not much more business. So you could turn on your Uber app and drive people but maybe there's just so few rides out there that it doesn't make sense for you to do it. So you have to shut down basically your quote unquote business as an Uber driver. If you're in this situation, you could be eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance.
Who may still be left out? Students, returning caregivers, ex-offenders, quit or fired for reasons not covered by UI.
There are still some people that may be left out of unemployment benefits. If you are, you or someone in your family is just graduating high school and they weren't working and they thought they're going to get a job, they may not be eligible for benefits. Similarly, if you've been out of the workforce for a while, taking care of a child, but you thought, now is the time you're going to go back to work. If you don't have that work history recently, you may not be eligible for unemployment benefits.
Title, paid leave and UI. Paid leave, some employers offer paid job protected leave.
I do want to spend just, final point. So many people out there have had to have their work interrupted or reduced because of responsibilities for family caregiving. And we know, unfortunately, going into this, many workers do not have access to paid leave on their jobs, either through their company or through a state program. But there's a lot more options out there than they were in the past. So if you're lucky enough to be an employer that has paid job protected leave, either before this or because of some new requirements, that's your first best bet, because you stay with your employer and you keep your benefits and your position. That's your first best bet. Now, if you don't have that and you are forced to leave your job because of family caregiving, you could get unemployment insurance, especially if you're unable to work temporarily due to COVID-19, like the disease itself or the illness. And then lastly, pandemic unemployment assistance is there for you as well. If you're not eligible for regular UI or you don't have paid leave, you have a third option of backstop in this order. It covers those who cannot work due to school closures or who may not meet the specific eligibilities for unemployment insurance, but are having caregiving responsibilities triggered by COVID-19. So if you're out of work right now because of caregiving, there are a lot of options for you to explore, right now.
Key takeaways.
So let me, just kind of close out with my presentation with some key takeaways. If you are out of work, there are programs out there to help you. In particular, the CARES Act, which passed on March 28th, expanded eligibility and increased the amount of money you can get for unemployment benefits. So it's worth exploring and filing. That's including if you applied before and you were to find to be ineligible. Think about applying again now. And lastly, be prepared to apply. I know it's frustrating. Be patient as states are trying to ramp up. They're working with companies like Google. They're hiring hundreds, maybe even thousands of people to answer the phone. Be patient. They want to help you. These benefits are there for you. Don't get too frustrated and keep at it until you get what you get. And like I mentioned, you can get them retroactively.
Andrew, thank you so much. Before we turn to your questions, I thought I would just take a moment and share some of the features and resources on Indeed that can help you as you are navigating job search and so much of what Andrew has just talked about in this moment. First, if you are unemployed, one thing that you can do right now on Indeed is to easily add #ReadyToWork to your Indeed resume summary. And this is going to alert employers that you are immediately available for any job.
Indicate that you are available to start working immediately and are open to work any job by adding #ReadyToWork to your Indeed profile at my.indeed.com.
This new label makes it easy for employers to find you through our resume database search. And if you'd like to add this to your resume, you can do so at my.indeed.com. When you are no longer looking for employment, you can just remove that hashtag from your profile summary. If you want to talk about how your job has been impacted by the coronavirus or really any other job-related topics, you can explore the discussion threads on Indeed Community, or you can post a question there to start a discussion with peers or with Indeed representatives.
Indeed.com/community.
While you are at home, you can also watch our other webinars on job-related topics, including one on navigating the job search amid COVID-19. You can find that along with other recordings on the Indeed Jobcast page, which you can see here is at go.indeed.com/jobcast. If you follow Indeed on Facebook or would like to start, you can tune in for our weekly live streams where we share the latest updates on Indeed resources and job search guidance. And as you can see, I have been hosting those so far. And finally, we have also curated relevant tips and information about addressing the impacts of COVID-19 on your job at indeed.com/here to help. It's important that you know that you are not alone and that we are here for you. So with that, I thought we could answer just a couple of questions before we wrap up. And so Andy, let me go to you with this first question. What do the questions on the application mean?
So let me just go through some of the things that are the most confusing to people. The number one confusing thing is, what if I've been furloughed from my job? My employer tells me I'm still employed, but I'm on a 0-hour schedule. What you're going to look at for that is lack of work. That's what that means. I also want to note that in the Oxford Dictionary, fired and laid off are synonyms. So it's very confusing. So if you're fired, it generally means you've done at least something related to your performance or rule. Laid off, it's not because of your performance. It's because of some broader condition. In general, if you check fired, they're going to have to find out why. It's going to take you longer to get your application processed. And lastly, available for work and searching for work. This is probably the most confusing thing right now, because although the states, perhaps on their very homepage that we talked about before, may have some information, flyers, fact sheets about what these terms mean in the current situation when people are being asked to stay home, but their application themselves may be hard-coded. So it may say that you need to contact 5 employers per week, and you may need to be able to accept the job this week. So take some time before you answer those questions, either when you first apply or going forward. Scout around your website, maybe even look at your governor's homepage, because they've been making announcements on this, to understand how these terms have changed in the current experience.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for one more question here, and I will take this one. The question is, how can I provide proof of job search activity on Indeed if it's needed to collect unemployment benefits? So on this question, it's good to know right now some states are waiving job search proof, others are not. So that's something I would really encourage you to look into for your state to understand exactly what is required of you in this moment. We are working right now on a way to make it easier for you to download your search activity from Indeed for this purpose. But in the meantime, I know that a lot of people will just take a screenshot of their saved searches and applications on Indeed and download that. So that's something that you might consider if you need to show that job search activity in the near term. And with that, we are going to wrap up. Before we go, here is some information about Andrew's organization, the Century Foundation.
Visit www.tcf.org. Follow us at tcf.org, at Pelham Prague. Sign up for updates, unemployment resources.
You can check out their website or social media for more unemployment resources. Also, as a reminder, you will be able to find this recording, the recording of this webinar, on Indeed's YouTube channel. So make sure to check that out if you want to rewatch portions of today's presentation. And that is all for today. Thank you, Andrew, so much for joining us today, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. Have a great day.
Text Indeed Jobcast